Have you ever stopped to think about how we believe in things we can't, see or touch or even fully wrap our heads around? Well, today we're diving into a really fascinating way of looking at belief itself, and we're going to use one of the most complex ideas in Western thought to guide us. Right at the center of all this is a paradox. So, take the Christian doctrine of the Trinity. For millions, it's this incredibly profound, life-shaping faith. But if you actually look at it written down, it can seem like an impossible riddle, almost like a math problem that just doesn't add up. So how does an idea that can kind of fry your brain become such a deep, personal conviction for so many people? And that's really the heart of the issue, right? When you hear phrases like three persons in one essence, it can feel so dry and academic. It's a formula, a concept. But is that really what belief is all about? The argument we're exploring today says absolutely not.
So, to solve this puzzle, our source introduces this brilliant distinction. The idea is that we don't just believe in one way. We actually have two different modes of believing. They're called notional and real apprehension. Let's break down what that actually means.
Okay, so on one side, you've got notional apprehension. Think of this as your brain just nodding along. It's you accepting that an idea makes sense on paper, but it doesn't really move you. It's described as a cold, ineffective acceptance. But then, on the other side, you have real apprehension. And this is where the imagination kicks in. The idea becomes personal, it becomes concrete, and it sparks what's called a strong, energetic adhesion. Basically, it gets under your skin and becomes a part of you. So, to put it really simply, notional apprehension is just intellectual agreement. You can notionally agree that E equals mc squared, right? You get the concept. But that doesn't mean you feel the power of an atom splitting. You know about it, but you don't really know it as a reality. Real apprehension, though, that's a total game changer. This is when an idea stops being just some abstract thing and becomes a living, breathing force in your life. It kindles the imagination, inflames the heart, and, this is the big one, it actually changes how you live. It's the difference between looking at a map of a city and actually walking down its streets, feeling the cobblestones under your feet. Okay, so how does this framework help us with our big theological puzzle? Well, the solution here is pretty radical. It says, stop trying to grasp the entire mystery all at once. Instead, you've got to break it down. I love this analogy. Think about a prism. You shine white light through it, and out comes this beautiful rainbow. Each color, red, green, blue, is something distinct we can actually see and appreciate. But if you try to think about all those colors combined back together, all you get is the idea of white light. A mystery that holds everything but shows you nothing specific. The argument is that belief works just like that. And here's the crucial point. Our minds just aren't wired to create a single, concrete mental picture of this whole paradoxical doctrine at the same time. It's just too big, too abstract. It goes beyond our normal experience. And if you try to force it, all you end up with is that cold, notional assent, just an intellectual puzzle. So, here's the solution. Forget trying to swallow the whole giant mystery in one gulp. Instead, you approach it as a series of individual statements, where each one can be grabbed onto by your imagination. This is the path from a notional puzzle to a very real faith. So how many of these statements does it take? Well, the argument is that this incredibly complicated doctrine can be broken down into just 9 core propositions that our minds can actually work with and imagine. Now, just look at these. The key thing here is that each proposition, all by itself, uses simple, powerful, and very concrete words. Words like father and son. These bring up images and relationships that we understand on a gut level. We can form a real mental picture of what the Father is God means, even if we can't possibly picture how all 9 of these truths can exist at the exact same time. But just having a list of propositions isn't enough. The next step is all about how these individual statements are brought to life, how they go from being simple text on a page to a deeply felt reality. So the process looks something like this. It starts with one of those simple propositions. Then that single idea gets wrapped up in the powerful stories and language you find in Scripture. After that, it gets expressed through communal rituals and festivals. And finally, all of that comes together and leads to personal devotion, to a real experience. Let's see how this actually works in practice. We'll just take one of those propositions as our example, the statement that the Son is God. See, this statement doesn't just sit there as an abstract fact, because it gets supercharged with imagery and emotion. Think about the burning words of St. Paul describing the crucifixion. That's not just theology, that's pure drama. Or think about the story of Jesus in the Gospel of John, or the emotional yearly rituals of Christmas and Easter. These things aren't aimed at your intellect. They are designed to grab your imagination and make the idea of the Son is God a vivid, powerful, personal reality. And this brings us to the ultimate distinction that's being made here. It's the difference between formal, systematic theology and lived, felt religion. So theology's job is notional. It's like the architect who designs the whole system, making sure all the parts fit together logically. It protects the doctrine. But religion, the actual lived experience, that's real. It doesn't live in the grand, abstract blueprint. It lives and breathes in the details, in contemplating each of those separate, imaginable parts. As our source puts it so perfectly, religion has to do with the real, and the real is the particular. Theology, on the other hand, deals with the notional, the general, the systematic. One is the living, breathing experience. The other is the intellectual framework that holds it all together. So, what's the big takeaway from all of this? Well, this framework is actually much bigger than just this one theological example. It's really about how all of us form our deepest convictions. I mean, this distinction between notional and real assent, it applies to pretty much everything. Think about your political beliefs. Is your belief in an ideology a general, abstract system you agree with? Or do you have a real, imaginative grasp of how its individual ideas actually affect people's lives? The same thing goes for any philosophy you might hold. Is it just a set of rules on a page, or is it a collection of truths that you actually feel and live by? And that's really the question this leaves us with, isn't it? When you take a hard look at the ideas you hold most dear, how many of them are just cold, ineffective concepts that you agree with, and how many of them are truly real? The ones that fire up your imagination, get your heart pumping, and actually shape the way you live your life. It's definitely a question worth thinking about.